Marvin Keller Trucking is currently looking for drivers to expand their fleet. We have solo, team, lease purchase, owner-operators, and even part-time local positions available.
Their solo drivers get up to 54 cents a mile. Teams get up to 58 cents a mile. Late model Cascadias and Mack Anthems available. Your health benefits start on day one.
That's nice.
No touch freight and 60% drop in hook.
Nice.
Want something different? Join the Elite Fleet. 4 days on and 4 days off. Hourly pay of $20 to $25 an hour. Want to start your own business? Check out the lease purchase program. With payments as low as $345, you can pay the truck off and start hiring your own drivers.
Want more details? Call 888-418-5161, extension 280.
Marvin Keller Trucking. Hey drivers, are you looking for a new job or are you looking just to become a new lease driver? Well, NCI offers new Kenworth T680 double bunk condos with APU and refrigerator, all standard in all of their equipment. Come aboard and become a lease operator, or you can become a company driver. NCI offers regional positions, over-the-road positions, team positions, and also NCI will take on a few students if you've graduated from a trucking school. Pick up the phone, check out NCI, and see if they have what you're looking for at 888-311-7076. That's 888-311-7076. Hey drivers, have you thought about becoming your own company? Have you thought you'd like to get your own authority and DOT number, but you just don't know how to go about doing it? Well, call J.J. Keller and Associates. They can help you get the proper registration and credentials that you need to operate legally. They protect drivers from penalties and out of service orders as a result of not having the proper authority. They save drivers time by filing their paperwork and ensuring everything is correct. Drivers, they also help you with unified carrier registration, US DOT and MC numbers, MCS 150 updates, year-around authority monitoring, and plenty more. Drivers, if you're looking to become your own company and you want your own authority number and DOT number today, call J.J. Keller and Associates at 888-601-2017. That's 888-601-2017 and tell them Talk CDL sent you. Thank you. So Talk CDL got a message today on the Facebook page.
What did that message say?
Well, it actually, a driver, Dave Dean, sent us a picture of some results. Of course, you know, as soon as there's a hurricane around the Gulf area, we start getting pictures and videos. Mm-hmm. And so we just got this from Dave Dean, and it's a picture of a rig. You can see it right there. Mm-hmm. It's a picture of a rig rolled over. And it's on, it looks like that bridge that it runs on Louisiana, but it's, I don't know, whatever it is, it's all across the water going, along the coast. And the rig is flipped over. It looks like it's ready to fall into the water. But, every time we do, but every time we get a hurricane, we start getting these videos and pictures. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at is, note to trucking companies, when there's a hurricane, turn your trucks around. I mean it sincerely. You got a driver coming to Florida or down in Alabama or along the Gulf. What do you think is more of a loss? The freight, the claim, your insurance going up, maybe the driver getting killed or hurt. It's just crazy loss. Or you flip the truck around and you pay a late fee because maybe the hurricane turned, right, and didn't hit the area anyways. So you suffer now a late load, and maybe you have to pay your receiver some kind of penalty. In fact, most likely they would probably understand why you called them the day before and said, hey, we're turning our driver around because we're not sure where this hurricane's going to hit. And with all the videos and pictures Talk CDL puts up, we're going to trust that we could be one of those trucks on our side.
Well, I'm sure the company would rather the truck turn around than lose the freight that they're carrying for them and have that loss. A day later is better than nothing. Not only that, but the outer bands of a hurricane can be pretty darn windy and be more like a tropical storm. So to turn the truck around before it would get near those bands are just as important as the whole anything, because those bands can go out miles and miles and hundreds of miles from where it's going to land. So we were getting rain and so forth where we're at when it didn't even truthfully come near us per se. So
yeah, we're like 400 miles from the hurricane right now, and we've had 3 days of rain. But you brought up something valid that I remembered. Do you remember a couple of years ago when we were at the Dallas Truck Show? Mm-hmm. And we were coming back, and I-10 was closed. You remember that?
I do.
And do you remember, I think we were roughly 100 miles north of I-10 coming through Louisiana. Do you remember that?
I do. And
do you remember the path we had to take on the roads?
It had some trees blown down, and it had like gas stations closed, and
it was nasty. And that was 100 miles north of where the hurricane hit. There was still giant trees blown over, roads blocked. Everybody was zigzagging through back roads and going around trees. Trucks were rolled over, all kind of crazy stuff. And so here we are today, and to me, it just doesn't make sense why any trucking company wouldn't have this. And again, I'm not here to put trucking companies down, but if you got a truck driver that you just figure, well, it's supposed to go to Louisiana and he's all the way over there in Alabama. Personally, these hurricanes, that means you're trusting the weatherman. How many times have we had the weatherman wrong?
I think there's memes going around with the weatherman just says, I don't know what's going on.
No, it's exactly it. Again, do yourselves a favor. From here on out, if there's a hurricane forecast to hit on a Friday, and you're delivering Friday morning or Thursday, and well, my truck's going to be sitting there, and I might not have a backhaul, so he might have to sit there 24 hours later when the hurricane's coming in, the roads are going to be shut down, the winds are coming. I mean, just kind of use common sense. My gosh, it's a late load, big deal. Trust me, the picture that Dave sent us is going to cost that company a lot more than a late load. I mean, obviously.
Well, yeah, the truck's completely on its side, and if the wind didn't blow it any further and take that trailer off the side, because the back end of the trailer is over the edge of the bridge, so there, like you said, there could be more loss. Hopefully the driver's not still in the tractor, that he got out and someone took him to safety.
So moving on, we have a guest today.
We do.
And what's the guest's name?
Greg.
And what company's Greg with?
Marvin Keller.
So he's with Marvin Keller Trucking, right? That's what they're called, Marvin Keller Trucking?
Yes.
They seem to be a nice company. They're actually one of our sponsors, and we invited them on the show to. I actually wanted to ask them what's Greg? What's Greg's title?
He's the driver, trainer, and recruiter.
Okay, so Greg is the driver, trainer, and recruiter. So that'd be great, because I'd really like to ask Greg, because another trucking company I was talking to yesterday sent me an email on how insane the hiring is right now in, not just trucking, but across the board in the United States. So maybe we can kind of ask Greg if it's crazy on their end also. And, the reasons being, what I'm hearing, a lot of it's, too many people are being paid to sit at home, but, who the heck knows? And his last name is what? How do you pronounce that? Alsop?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, okay. So we are going to call Greg here in just a minute. We told him we'd call him at, 10:30 our time?
Yeah.
And you got the word of the day?
I do.
Can you think you could whip that out in 2 minutes or less, or do you think we should wait till the end? Let's see, how quickly can you whip it out? And, of course, it's by Word Genius.
Word Genius.
And what actually is that word? I'm looking at it. I'm actually sitting close to you today because we're mobily. We're not in our normal studio today. We have a smaller mixer, and we're actually sharing a mic. And is that chambray? Oh, chambray. I see the pronouncing. Go ahead, put it up there.
Chambray. Chambray.
Chambray. So chambray is spelled C-H-A-M-B-R-A-Y. And what does chambray mean?
A linen finished gingham cloth with a white weft and colored wrap, producing a mottled appearance. So I have,
sounds like a lisp just reading it. What? Go back to that definition. What's a gingham? Hold your finger on that right there, and you actually can look it up. Oh, maybe not. There it is. Look up. So a gingham is a lightweight, plain woven cotton cloth, typically checked in white and bold color.
So basically, a chambray is kind of like a flannel shirt in trucker talk, because it's the kind, like the cowboys used to wear, where it had the pearl snaps on it. That is a chambray.
Okay, so it actually means nothing to me. Let's move on.
No, it wouldn't.
Let's go ahead and dial.
Thank you for calling Marvin Keller. This is Greg. How may I help you?
Hi, Greg. This is Ruth Ann with Talk CDO. How are you?
I'm doing well, Ruth Ann. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. So you work with Marvin Keller Trucking out of Sullivan, Illinois, right?
Yes. I'm with Marvin Keller Trucking. I've been with them since 2012, actually.
How many trucks you guys got there? How you doing, by the way?
I'm doing well. This is Troy. Hi, Troy.
How you doing?
Doing well. Hey, I've got your question in regards to the number of trucks. We have typically will range anywhere between 120 to 150 drivers, depending on the level of how many owner-operators we might run. As far as company drivers, and ratio is about 50% company, 50% owner-operators currently.
Okay, and you're a dry-van company, correct?
Correct. We're drive-in, no-touch freight. We do haul a number of other products, basically from A to Z when it comes to drive-in. We do require tanker and hazmat endorsements for drivers, because we are pulling products similar to like Sherwin-Williams, some of those items, some of the food grade corrosives, that type of thing.
So what kind of area do your drivers go? Are they 48? Are they more regional?
Sure, good question. Actually, we have authority for all 48. Primarily, though, our OTR drivers are going to run a big circle, if you don't mind. I can describe the circle from Dallas-Fort Worth area up north through the Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska area, and then slipping over into the southern half of Wisconsin, Michigan, dipping down through the Pennsylvania, western New York area, through Jersey, down through the East Coast, into the Atlanta, especially the Atlanta, Georgia area, and then back across, more so within about 98% of everything we do is going to be in that area.
So you're kind of like really central right there in the heart of all of the United States there.
Yeah, pretty much right in the middle of all the action. We rarely get over to the West Coast. Occasionally we'll have something go over there. But west of the Rockies is typically, other than maybe Salt Lake City, we don't do a lot outside of that.
So what year did they form your company? What year did Marvin Keller start? In fact, did Marvin Keller start out as Marvin Keller, the owner-operator, and worked himself up? Is that the story there, or is it a little different?
Yeah. Actually, it's an interesting story. I actually moved into Bethany, Illinois in 1967. And at that point, Marvin had already been driving for 2 years. He started out as a single owner operator, and by the time I knew them, I think they had 2 trucks. So from 1965 to today, we've been growing and changing and evolving from one iteration to another, like most companies do that stay in business. You got to make some changes. But yes, he started out as an individual driver. He's still around, shows up here. He has actually a garden area here at the office area, and you'll see him in the summer times working in his own garden. And he likes to show up to a lot of the events we'll have, like driver appreciation, any kind of event we might have where we're bringing in drivers. He'll show up and chat with the drivers and still keep keep touch with everybody.
So he likes to keep it still a family-oriented type of company, because he still tries to be involved in it. Were you ever a driver, Marvin, with Marvin?
Yes, actually, I started in 2012. My history was outside of the trucking industry. I had an uncle who was a flatbedder when I was growing up, and all the stories he told of the late 50s, 60s, 70s of truck driving. At that point, I didn't think I'd ever want to be a truck driver. Although I enjoyed the trucks, I wasn't had any idea that I would ever be into the trucking industry. And then in 2011, things were changing. My frustration with the things that I was doing, my wife suggested that I look into trucking. And so I started, went to a class in Springfield, Illinois, got my license, and Marvin Keller, recruiter, came to our school, spoke about it, and I was down to Marvin Keller and one other company. And since I already had a kind of a firsthand knowledge growing up in the area and watching Marvin Keller grow, I thought, well, that looked like a company I could be involved with, and here I am today. I started as a driver, and now I do recruiting and training for the drivers. So
That's awesome. So that you kind of have all your you know them so well because you've started from them with a driver and you're still with them. You're not having influences by other companies or anything like that, so that you really know your company.
Yeah, and that's the thing I liked about here. Again, going back to one of the reasons I chose Marvin Keller was the fact that it is more like a family than a company. I've been in the corporate structures over the years, and change of management, change of ownership, change of styles. You tend to, you think you've got something going, and then all of a sudden they change your commission structures, or all of the processes and everything gets changed, and it's like, well, this is frustrating. So I just got tired of that, and I got into this because of the fact that it is more a family, more. Our drivers are all known by their name. In other words, they're not just a number. They're not a commodity, which I really enjoy.
I think a lot of drivers do actually enjoy that too. They don't like the huge companies because they feel like they're lost within it. But when there's an issue that they're dealing with personally, they like to be able to speak to their driver manager or with someone and have more of that personal one-on-one feeling instead of, okay, what truck again are you? What's your number again? And have that feeling instead. Speaking of trucks.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all right. I was just going to ask you what type of trucks you have.
Well, we currently running a fleet of newer vehicles, a 2016 model year Cascadia by Freightliner. We are starting to kind of move those out of the fleet. We have new Cascadias, 2020, 21s. We are also running a handful of Mack Anthems, as well as some new KWT 680s. So, and each year Joe tends to, and Joe, by the way, Joe Keller is Marvin's son. Joe took over the company a few years ago and has brought in new life and a little different direction as far as updating equipment and so forth, and the philosophy on that. And each time we replace trucks, we looking at new, more modern equipment, a lot of convenience features and comfort features for the driver. As I try to tell new drivers coming in here, this is not my uncle's 1959 Mack anymore.
No, they've
these
got
are like
lots of
Cadillacs we're running now.
Right. They've definitely upgraded themselves, haven't they?
For sure, yes. So, and then of course you ask about the trucks. Our fleet of over 300 some trailers. We're looking at about a 3-to-1 ratio of tractor trailer ratio, and our trailers are all 2016 and newer. So a nice updated fleet. And so really, really nice. When I started driving, we had some of the really old trailers where you had to actually have a pair of vice grips in your pocket just to hold the tandem pin lever out, because the locking mechanism wouldn't hold it. So you'd have to put a pair of vice grips on it to hold it to keep the locking pins so you could move your tandems.
I think that probably a lot of drivers can actually associate with some of the tools they had to carry just to make sure that their truck was hooked up properly.
Exactly, yeah. A pair of pliers, vice grips, a few screwdrivers, and some duct tape, and you're a truck driver.
Well, I remember Troy, his grandfather, used to show him how to use a dime to make adjustments to his tractor when he was driving.
Yeah. The it turn it into a screwdriver?
Well, no, it's actually back in the day, a dime fit perfectly in an air hose. And if you had a leaking air hose back then, you could just put a dime in it and then seal it back up, and it would actually block the air perfectly and wouldn't let it leak.
Sure.
Now, Ruth Ann, remember some of the oddest things. So
yeah, but that's what makes it interesting. Those little things. It's amazing what we remember. Yeah, I remember talking about the old days. When I said my uncle was driving, one reason I would not want to drive is because he hauled steel all the way across the country. He was a long haul steel hauled out of Lafayette, Indiana, and he pulled this Mack. Of course, if anybody doesn't know what a 1959 Mack looks like, you can just look it up on the internet. Hard springs, you might as well be riding down the highway on this table I'm sitting in front of, because that's how hard it would hit the road. And no sleeper. So if he slept either in the roadside truck stops that had rooms for drivers and or in his seat himself. And then when he first got a sleeper, the first one I remember him talking about getting his new sleeper, they basically took the window out of the old Mack and welded a box on the back of the window. So he had to climb up over the seat and through this old window that was in the back of the truck and into the sleeper. Now we've got what I consider apartments on wheels. So big difference.
That's true. When you deal with some of those condos, like you said, it's like an apartment. They have some of them. I mean, you'll go down the road and you'll see this huge sleeper, and you're automatically saying they don't go home at all.
Sure. So, and of course, we have to be cautious of how much we put into it, because the more you put into the tractor, the less freight you can haul. So, the industry has had to develop lighter and lighter weight tractor units without sacrificing power and durability, but yet making those creature comforts and still be able to haul 43, 44, 45,000 pounds of freight. So it's an interesting engineering feat, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So Greg, I noticed Marvin Keller Trucking has a lease purchase program. That's one of the big things going on right now in the industry. I talk to a lot of companies, and more are implementing a lease purchase or a lease. Many of them are actually just doing lease. Some of them are doing purchase. Talk to us about the Marvin Keller lease purchase program.
Okay, well, our lease purchase program, we really never had one. I mean, we until it was around 2015, 2016, and we've kind of evolved since then. Basically, we saw a need in the industry for a true driver-friendly lease purchase program. Unfortunately, and I'm, not to cast aspersions, but I think here's where we differ from a lot of companies. A lot of lease programs are built for the company's benefit and not necessarily for the benefit or the development of the driver. And Joe put together a program where a driver doesn't have to go in, doesn't get put into a brand new, high dollar, high monthly payment type of truck, but yet a used, good quality used truck that he can actually, or she can actually develop a good business plan with and not put themselves in a hole. The other thing is a lot of the lease purchase programs that I've seen over the years, they tend to run really hard at first, so it looks like you're doing extremely well, and then what happens is when you get closer to time, they're dispatching the drivers less and less, so they're having a harder time making the payments. In other words, now who gets the truck back? Well, Joe said that's enough of this. We're going to develop business partners. And even though it's called a lease purchase program, he and everybody here at Marvin Keller look at these lease purchase owner-operators as partners with us. So the better they do, the better we do. And so basically a smaller down payment, smaller weekly payments, and of course all that's going to depend on the year and the value of that particular equipment. But currently, we have some 2016 model year Cascadias that we're going to be rolling out of the fleet and replacing, and most of those are, mid 400, 500,000 mile trucks that are in very good shape. Our full line, our staff has taken very, very good care of them, and so now you're getting a good quality vehicle without having to make a huge payment. And you actually will own that vehicle within typically 36 to 48 months. Well, now you've got a good vehicle. We've actually had several guys that have, several owner operators that have lease purchased one truck Then they lease purchased another, so they had a buddy that wants to drive. So they've now owned 2 trucks. I have one. One of the gentlemen actually owns 3, and looking at a 4th one. So Joe's whole idea and philosophy was this: if we build partners that are successful, we're going to be more successful rather than having to continue to look for somebody to refill that lease purchase truck that we got back. So I think it basically it works out so that again. I hate to keep repeating myself, but you truly can develop your own business and become a partner with us and still be part of the Marvin Keller family. So you have some independence, but yet you also are still part of our family.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's really smart thinking on Joe's end, where he's not losing those still good quality tractors. He's able to give an opportunity to a driver that wants to kind of follow in his daddy's footsteps, start out young and fresh and build it within themselves and keep that family going still strong.
Sure. And what was really interesting is as we developed this program, in the first couple years, we had about 20, and now currently I have to apologize because I don't know the number, but we were quickly at about 20 of our company drivers who rolled over into ownership.
That's
and
good.
And I think most all of them are still here, which is even a better testimony.
Right. It says a lot about the company.
Yeah. Sure.
So, okay, so you said you're not real big on the West Coast earlier. So if drivers listening right now on the podcast here, what states? I mean, are you more hiring from east of the Mississippi, or are you going over there to North Dakota and Colorado to grab drivers? Are you Arizona, or are you just basically, go ahead, tell us.
Yeah, I would say the majority of our drivers, and it all boils down to really home time and how much home time we can give them. I have a couple drivers that drive out of Texas, and they're the type of driver that doesn't go home very often. And so even though I could get them back probably at least every 14 days there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they want to stay out. So it kind of depends on the driver. We have taken opportunity for drivers outside of the main area, kind of go back and answer your question, is in Illinois, of course, Indiana, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, the Michigans, actually all the way down into North Carolina, into the Georgia area. Those areas where we have a lot of freight lanes. And the reason we're looking at this, again, maybe it's not really selfish. In other words, it's more looking from the driver's standpoint is, okay, are we going to be able to offer them home time opportunity? That's the one thing we want to look at is we don't want to be known as a company that says, okay, you'll get you home on a regular basis, and then they don't get home for 4, 5, 6 weeks. And so we want to make sure we can promise. When we make a promise, we can keep it. And so those areas that we have freight lanes in, that I mentioned earlier, we can offer, anywhere between 3 out of 4 weekends at home to every 14 days for sure at home. And I like to be that way because I don't want to as a driver myself, I don't want to overcommit. I don't want to tell somebody something we can't do. And of course, being a smaller company, as I say, everybody knows where my office is. And so if you come in, you've got a key to get into the building, you know right where I'm at. So if I'm lying to somebody, I don't want to create enemies, So
you don't want to see them again unhappy.
Yes, exactly. And it's amazing how many drivers come in as they're in here. They all come into the office. We just had 2 drivers, a team of drivers that they're owner-operators, but they, man and wife, live in Mississippi. And every time they come in, she quilts. So she comes in and shows pictures of the quilt people that she's doing. She's actually making a quilt for one of the guys out in the shop. And then they all have the pets, and she just got a new pet, so she had to make the rounds in here with her new pet, little fur ball. My mind just went blank. It's not Pekingese, but Pomeranian, little Pomeranian she got. And so, that's the kind of relationship we have with our drivers. They come into the office. we're glad we have some of the folks that even have dog biscuits. So when a driver brings their little pet in, they've got dog biscuits to give to the pet. So it's a totally different atmosphere than what I've ever seen. So.
Sounds like you guys should move your terminal to Alabama.
Is that where you're from?
No, it's a southern thing. I mean, I just picture Betty making a quilt on the porch and Uncle Jed baking a pie.
Well, it's all aunt and uncles,
you go.
Yeah,
big family.
That's it. I'm always doing the aunt and uncle thing.
Marvin Keller's reunion is when all the drivers come up and come into the shop for the day or whatever. It's just their family reunion, right?
Are you trying to make a Marvin Keller joke, or what are you doing?
No, I'm just saying it's a company that's like a family. It's like their family reunion. They're all coming in and saying hi.
Okay, I didn't know if Ruth Ann was going to start ragging on you guys or not.
No.
You never know with her. She's.
Well, got to have a little fun somewhere, right?
Yeah. So Greg, real quick, while it's on my mind. All right. So you're not a mid-sized company. You're more like what I would consider a mid-small company in a sense. In fact, I like that number: 120 to 150 trucks or drivers at a time, depending on your owner-operators. Talk to me about student programs. Do you train drivers, and do you take them out of a school? Do you work with any certain schools, or are you needing like a year of experience to even get in Marvin Keller?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because we do, for a company our size, I'm really impressed with the training program that we offer. And so I actually, like I said, I came through the training program myself. So we'll take a student driver right out of school that has his CDL, fresh CDL, wide-eyed, I'm ready to go, got my license, and I know what I need to know about trucking, but unfortunately they only get a part of it right now. So we help them acquire the additional training. There's a lot of training going on out there that I don't really consider training. It's more team driving. Our trainers are all on the same 14-hour clock as our trainee. So when a driver comes out of school that's fresh out of school, they have a lot of learning to do, a lot of things that get thrown at them that they didn't realize that they were going to get. But having our trainers sitting in the seat beside them while they're driving and not sleeping in the sleeper while they're driving, to me, that's quality training. They're going to, be able to help them if they see something they're coming up on that they don't really recognize or are not sure about. Now they don't have to wake somebody up to find out before, proceeding. Our trainers are right there to help them along the whole way.
What am I doing this jackknife? I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
okay, I've got this. We got this. I'm in Atlanta now, and I don't know where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah, that's even worse. So I'm hearing from other trucking companies that there's a lot of these schools that are springing up that are like a 7 day course. I know there's one in Florida for sure. Actually, probably two. I know there's one out in, I think somebody was telling me about one in, was it Arizona the other day, Ruth Ann? We were talking to somebody.
And I think there's one in Indiana.
But anyways, a lot of trucking companies need at least, I think, 160 hours. They got to be like a PTDI school and all that other good stuff. What does Marvin Keller need? Does somebody have to have a driving certificate from a certain accredited hours, or do you take them right out of a 5-day course? How do you do it?
Well, first off, I would be surprised that they could even get anything done in 5 to 7 days. They basically might be able to pass a test, but that's it. We've got two avenues. Number one, we're looking at accredited schools. Okay, so I haven't even heard of these 5 to 7 days. What you're telling me now, this is news to me. So we would not probably recognize that as a course. They would probably have to take additional coursework through us. Now, one thing we can do is we actually started an in-house training program. The big problem with this is we have an in-house training program, but it's going to be an Illinois license. And so while we would consider somebody from out of state, they would have to have some type of a residence here in Illinois before we could get them the license. We have considered looking at doing some Missouri and Indiana training also, so we have capability to do that. But if you haven't gone through a accredited school or accredited coursework, whether it be a for-profit school or a community college school or something like that, we would probably have to take an additional training through our course. If you don't have a license at all and just want to try to get into it, another thing you could do is contact me and we could talk about our training course. We actually have an in-house training course where you come in fresh. We have rooms to stay here in the office, in the back of the office here. We have 4 guest rooms for drivers to stay in overnight. And then we have full kitchen, laundry, and shower facility. So that's just kind of like home away from home. And they spend 4 days a week. For about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how quickly we can get them through, and it's more one-on-one training. So rather than having 7, 8, 9, 10 people in a class, and then have to share your truck time and all your seat time in practice with other drivers, this is more of a one-on-one, one-on-two type of scenario. So then they would go through the whole Illinois licensing course, taking the written test for their permitting. They would come out with their physical, of course, which they have to have the physical and all the drug screens. We also train them in hazmat because we do require the hazmat and tanker endorsements. They will come out with those endorsements where they might not at some of the other schools. A lot of schools don't train the hazmat or teach the hazmat or training for the hazmat tests. Mm-hmm. So they'll come out with their hazmat and training and tanker endorsements, and at the end of that 3 to 4 weeks, then they would roll right into our orientation as a driver, as our program is an intent to hire program. So in order to get into our program, you will have to have passed all of our interview process, the application and interview process just to get in the course. Mm-hmm. Unlike a lot of schools, which if you've got the money, you can get into it.
Right,
so
right.
whether or not you've passed any pre-qualifications or not. So.
Well, on that subject, what is the age limit that you like to bring them in at? And is there anything as far as their MVR? Like if you have a young kid that, maybe he was younger, got something stupid on his MVR, what is your requirements for them to start out that way as a student? And then if they do have experience, what is the experience level you bring them in as a solo driver and any of those kind of requirements?
Okay. So age requirements, to answer that, is basically you're going to have to be 23 years of age or older, whether you've gone through whatever course you've gone through or if you have current experience.
They're dropping everything else down to 18. Marvin Keller.
Yeah, I understand. Unfortunately, we are part of a consortium that has looked at the safety sides of everything, and we want to have our drivers to have a little bit of driving experience, even if it's in an automobile, rather than just coming freshly out of high school. Now that may change in the future if some of the studies prove out, but a lot of the insurance companies are a little hesitant with somebody age 23 or younger, mm-hmm. or 22, 21. We have had, I've actually lost 3 or 4 drivers that I can personally remember when I've gone to these recruiting at these schools that I know 100% that this individual would have made an excellent driver, but the age requirement. So it's kind of frustrating sometimes from the recruiting standpoint, but also I work with safety, and we want to make sure that there's that safety factor and the maturity factor once they get in here as a driver. So that's part of the reason why they did the 23 and up. As far as coming out of as far as an experienced drivers, and you asked about the solo thing. Mm-hmm. If you're 23 and you've gone through our 6 weeks of training course right out of school, you become a solo driver at that point. And then anybody that we're looking at hiring for some of our other positions, obviously we have some positions like 4 on, 4 off, 14 days out, things like that, that 1 year or more experience.
So if they have already done their schooling, they've already been driving for another company, they can come in there with just a year experience or even maybe a few months experience and become a solo driver with you as long as they work for a company that, like a big company, like say, I don't know, JB or Schneider or someone.
Yeah, yeah. And again, obviously, we look at individual applications as far as what we're going to hire and so forth. But if they have a year experience with someone else, definitely we would bring them in. Now, what we found is we've also because of our safety mindedness here and the type of training that we have seen out there, we've had drivers that come in here with less than 1 year of experience. And we have accepted them as employee, as a driver, but they will go through at least a portion of with a trainer out there on the road with one of our trainers. We feel like that there's just too many things out there, and oftentimes several times that we've had that case where the driver has come on board with us. They've been, let's say, 6 months with someone else, and when I get to talking to them, I find they had maybe 2 weeks of training, and then they went out there on their own, and all of a sudden, they're getting themselves into situations they don't know what's going on. We want to make sure that driver has all the tools to be successful. I think part of the reason why we have such a high turnover in this industry is because of the lack of training of our drivers. We're in the industry is in such a rush to get drivers from passing the test to the seat, that they forget about the things that are necessary to teach those drivers to become competent and proficient in their trade. And now they're unsafe, or they feel like that they don't know enough. And then they, I don't know about you, but if I'm totally uncomfortable in a job, don't feel like I can do it, I don't really want to be working there, So I think that's part of the reason why we have high turnover, because of the way we train people now. And here at Marvin Keller, we have taken that other approach that no matter where you came from, if you have less than 1 year experience, you will go out with a trainer for maybe up to 4 weeks, depending on what the trainer feels like you need. Now, we've had several drivers that come in and they get, a couple of weeks, and the trainer says this person's, puts their rubber stamp on and they're good to go. And then, as long they also have the contact with our trainer as well as your driver manager and to support the driver and so forth. So again, going back to that part of the team, part of the family, we're not just throwing them out there to the wolves, in other words.
I seen on your website that which by the way, people, is marvinkeller.com is their website. I seen on that you also do military. So if they have if they've drove truck in the military, you accept that kind of experience also, right?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we were one of the first in the state of Illinois to have the VA approved internship program for military veterans, which basically allows them to utilize some of their benefits as a military for stipends during that first year. We've got a program set out, the guideline on training for that first 12 months. And, if anybody knows anything about the government and the military, they're really big on, detail, and paperwork. So we had to jump through a lot of hoops to get that program together, but we did put together a program. And we've had several veterans who have actually used this program. I've visited some of the military bases on recruiting and job fair type of things for transitioning veterans, transitioning out of the military, and have hired several veterans under this program. It's really a nice program if someone is just coming out of the military, whether they have their license or not. Again, we can work with them to try to get that license as well as a job once they get out and get that license.
So I'm looking here on your site, and I had seen this before. It looks like you actually have some really cool runs. One is a 4-on, 4-off deal. I know some companies that used to do similar things like this. In fact, I know a company that used to have what they called a triangle run, and they would have 3 drivers on it. One driver would be off for a week. The other 2 would be running it, and then every third week you were off. But this one here, 4-on, 4-off, $20 to $25 an hour. Can you talk about that? Like, where do you hire drivers in for that? I guarantee you probably have people always inquiring about that.
Oh yeah, that's one of our big inquiries when it's out there advertising or somebody's been on our website. We kind of set this up as if anybody in the industry knows, you've got a high investment in a piece of equipment, and if our traditional OTR driver was home, for 3 out of 4 weekends each month. And then, so you got a truck sitting there doing nothing for 2-3 days. If they go on vacation, now you don't have anybody in that truck. So what we were trying to do is offer drivers that have experience. They have to have at least 1 year of experience. But many of these drivers that are calling on these have multiple years of experience. They're towards the end of their driving career, maybe want to change, that don't want to be out there on the road as much. So we put this together so that they can keep their hand in the industry. Their income requirements is not as great because they're at that situation in life, whatever their situation is, and then because they don't want to be out there for in order to make a big bucks, with the really high dollars, guys are out there driving all the time. Well, as they say, if it ain't rolling, you ain't earning. So the key was to kind of get a balance of home time and drive time, still make a decent amount of money, but yet have a lot of time that you can devote to your home. The 4-on-4 off situation is slip seat. So we have 2 drivers, 1 truck. And so while let's say I'm running 4-on-4 off, while I'm driving, the other driver would be at home and then off duty. And then whenever I get back in on the 4th day, that driver then jumps in the truck, and then they would then take on for 4 days while I'm home for 4. The nice thing about that is you are going to have some time. You can pretty much tell from today to the next year, every 4 days you're going to be home. So you could set up doctor's appointments, business appointments you need to take care of, trips. You can take some short day trips and then throw some vacation time onto that too. And then now you've got you can make some different plans that you couldn't be before in this industry. That's one of the downfalls. A lot of people that are in this have a harder time finding days to take off, or days to set a doctor's appointments, or they need to go to the bank and take care of some transactions. That was a little more difficult, or they had to take vacation days to do it. Well, now with this 4-on-4 off, they know, hey, so I'm going to be off next Tuesday or next Wednesday. Hey, I'll just go ahead and make sure of that, makes that appointment for them.
What's the hiring areas for that, Greg?
Right now, currently we're looking at mostly in Illinois here, Kankakee, Sullivan, Illinois, Effingham, Illinois. Although I have had some interest, some drivers at one point had shown some interest, maybe like in Atlanta area, areas that we go to, North Carolina, maybe even the St. Louis, Missouri area, where they would have another driver. Say you got two friends that are in the same situation, and say, that sounds like a cool idea. So they could basically share that one truck, as long as I have 2 drivers, or I have enough other drivers in that area that would be where I could, because I don't want to move a truck to say Atlanta, Georgia, and let it sit there for 4 days empty while somebody's driving. See, so but we would entertain the idea of having it outside of Illinois if, in fact, we had a couple drivers.
Mm-hmm. So as long as you have people that are friends and, close enough in the area that they can share the tractor and be able to do that, sure, you're willing to give them that opportunity. If there was something that you could say about Marvin Keller as far as being the ultimate trucking company, what would it be?
Well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think it has to do with the personal touch. You're not part of this big ocean of drivers that nobody knows about. You don't get lost in the shuffle. You come in, everybody knows you. Just going right back to that, talking about the drivers bringing their pets and their projects in and so forth. It makes it a lot more homey, a lot more down to earth. See, I grew up as a rural area, so that's ideal for me. I mean, that's kind of what I grew up with. You know everybody. You got friends everywhere. You're not part of a big. Whereas in some of the big cities, you got to get lost. Well, now you're part of that. I don't know. I guess you want to put that Alabama, as Troy says, that Alabama situation to it. But
we're going to get hate mail from Alabama.
Yeah. that's all that personal touch. I think that's what I think that really keeps me here and keeps, I think, most of the drivers that we have here.
Okay. Now, what is what does Marvin Keller offer as far as like if you wanted to quick shove out a little bit of an ad, we already know 23 years or older.
I was going to say that stuff. Stop using my brain, will you? No, so really what she's saying is we've talked about students. We've talked about student programs, experienced drivers. We talked about 1 or 2 year runs. We know there's a lease purchase program. We know there's owner-operators, and I'm sure an owner-operator gets paid probably the same as a lease purchase, only he has his own truck. I see you have teams also on here. I'm guessing that's not coast to coast since you're not really a big California. What can a team do as far as miles there?
Depends on how the team operates. We're probably more of what I call I guess you'd call it maybe Rick Ellis, our Vice President of Operations, likes to call it a super single or super solo. You're probably looking anywhere around the high 3s to mid 4s on the miles. I think a lot of our the team drivers have been predominantly the man and wife who wants to spend a lot of time together.
Yeah, that's what it sounds more like.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've had a couple teams in the past that I call the super teams, but again, it's not the coast to coast stuff. So you're not going to get those 6, 7, 8,000 miles of a week and that kind of stuff. We're more of that mid range. I've had them up to I had one team at one point did about 6, but that was highly unusual. And of course, it depends on how the team wants to operate or how experienced they are in scheduling themselves. Because, it's a matter of, am I utilizing my time properly, just like a solo driver? If you're not communicating and you're not trip planning properly and you're not doing the things you need to do to keep that left door shut, as my trainer would like to say, then you don't get as many miles. Right. So, right now we're having to turn down loads. We're getting loads all the time, just don't have enough drivers to fill all of the loads that we have offered to us. So, it's a good time. I think, the freight for us, even through this COVID-19 situation, while it slowed down a little bit initially, it just came back pretty hot and heavy because of the type of freight we're running. We're still running a lot of, the food grade products and the food products going in and out. Water, what do I want to say, materials, that are used for other production operations. So a lot of things we were doing didn't completely close down. So that made it kind of nice. We weren't in the automobile industry, so, we'll do a little bit of freight that'll be connected to it. But, a lot of the drivers that were in that industry and those contractors within the industry had a hard hit. And so we didn't have nearly that type of hits. And right now it's just coming back really strong. Like I said, we could use drivers almost immediately if we could get some.
I got an email yesterday from one of the trucking companies that we're real close to, and it was titled, "The trucking industry is not the only industry that has been hit by this, whatever you want to call it, the pandemic thing." But realistically, where they're finding more trouble than anything, I mean, if you really wanted to get into it, but it's realistically, in fact, one of my Texas people called me yesterday and said he just found out they're still paying them they're at least paying them $400 additional on top of their unemployment. And all you had to do was cry you're afraid of the COVID-19 and you're going to get unemployment. And guess what? You got to put yourself in a driver's place for a second. What's the average truck driver make? Maybe $1,000 to $1,400 gross till you take his taxes out. He's maybe bringing home $900 to $1,100, maybe less, even $800. Well, if you're in, say, Texas, you're getting $600 and I think it's like $490, almost $500 plus the additional $400. You're bringing home just under $1,000, sitting at home watching Merv Griffin. Well, Merv Griffin's probably dead by now, but I'm Jerry Springer or whatever the hell you
your
want.
age now, I think maybe.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that's really what everybody's up against right now, trying to find. It was bad enough that the trucking industry is 140% turnover because of the industry itself. I mean, we all know that 3 out of 4 truck drivers get their CDL and don't even make it 6 months. They're not mentally prepared. They have this life at home, and one day they wake up in a sleeper bunk. Okay, and their dog isn't jumping on the bed to say hi to them anymore. The kids ain't running in. They can't go to their favorite hoagie shop. They're out on the road going, "What the hell did I do?" And there they are, waking up to some reality. 3 out of 4 of these guys are like, "Screw this, man. I got to be home whether I'm making money or not." And you can't blame them. It's either for you or it's not. So then you mix in the pandemic on top of an already frail industry, and it's been a disaster. This whole year has been a disaster for most trucking companies, and it's not their fault, and that's what really sucks the most.
Yeah, it's tough. Now, the beauty of this, and again, I'm glad you brought up some of those statistics on turnover and so forth, kind of bring me into one of the things that I talked to a driver about. A couple of things. We haven't touched on women at the wheel. We have a Women at the Wheel program. We have a strong female driver presence. Industry average of about 6 to 7% of the drivers nationwide are female. Our percentage runs anywhere between 12 and 14%.
Good.
So we're typically double the industry average on that.
Are you pro?
Yeah, and then you mentioned the 100 and some percent turnover. And even in the good times, it's 80 to 90 to 100% turnover ratio, depending on the year. Mm-hmm. Our turnover ratio hovers around 30 to 34%.
Awesome.
That's really good.
So that tells us, again, while I tell everybody, there is no perfect company out there. I don't care what industry you're in, what business or line of industry, career you choose, there's nothing perfect. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people looking for the perfect. They're never satisfied.
Right.
But what this 34% tells me is that our turnover ratio tells me is that we're doing some things right for most of the people. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I'm looking at. Again, it goes back to from the day they talk to me to the day they're out to the road, everything in between is what I say it is. Okay. Now, I'm not saying there isn't times where things happen that, I don't have any idea. We don't have any control over. Like you said, Troy, there's a lot of things we don't have any control over. But it's how we handle those things, I think, that sets us apart and why we have been so successful and still financially secure and strong during this COVID pandemic issue that we've got going on. And we just see this right now as a great time and opportunity, even though there's some bad things happening and some crazy stuff going on and things we don't have any control over, like politicians who want to make a thing and give them $600 more on their, or $400 or whatever it is on their unemployment. We can't control that. But what we can do is be positive on what we do and how we treat people and how we're going, because this is going to get over at some point.
Right.
And then now what do you do,
And those drivers that weren't driving gonna have to come back to reality and say, okay, now I got to go and use my professional CDL license, and I've been at home this whole time because I didn't want to work. But with that being said, we already I said marvinkeller.com is your website. Let a driver know what is another number that they can call. What's the recruiting line that they can call you at?
Well, it's pretty simple to call our main line, 217-728-9800. And my extension is 280. So 217-728-9800, extension 280, and you'll talk to Greg. Now, if you dial in and just if you don't dial my extension in there, we also have Greg Sullivan, who runs the shop, and we tend to get each other's phone calls. So just knowing that. But we'll get a hold of somebody. If I'm not available, like I said, wear a lot of hats in this company since we're smaller. So I do recruiting. I also do some training and safety training, remedial training for things. Do Smith system training for our drivers. So I'm doing other things, not just the recruiting side. So please leave a message. I will get back to somebody. one of the things, Ruth Ann and Troy, you might understand, it's like, okay, so somebody says, well, I've been trying to get a hold of you. Have you left a message? How do I know you've been trying to get a hold of me if you haven't left a message? So please leave that message. I will get back to you.
So Greg, we're just about out of time here. In say 45 seconds or less, let these drivers know, is there any special deals going on right now? Is there a hot and heavy dedicated run or anything special that you're looking for? Reach out to these. What do you got?
Sign-on bonuses, maybe?
Sign-on bonuses, all that other good stuff. Throw a pitch out there and let these guys know, really, because, we've said a lot, and hopefully all you drivers out there will go ahead and check out Marvin Keller, because I like the green trucks, Ruth Ann. That's my favorite.
Let me
color.
the Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyways,
Stand out, don't they?
Yeah, they're really cool.
Well, the one thing I would mention, we do have a $1,000 sign-on bonus paid out, $250 each quarter while you're here. We're looking at doing some changes on that, but what I caution drivers, we're here for the long haul. I find that when they're pushing bonuses on particular lanes or something, those bonuses typically have a lot of stipulations in them, even though they sound really nice. Ours is just plain flat. $1,000 you sign on with is 1 year more experience, $250 every the quarter that you're here for your first 12 months. No other stipulation than that. And typically those bonuses are for somebody for a position or a situation where nobody really wants it. So they have to push that bonus there. What we're looking at is the long haul. And I think that overall, the appreciation we have for our drivers, the income that they can expect, I think it's just steady. It's not any of this, we're shooting this. Because what happens is if you start throwing a lot of money at people, then we found that we're finding job hoppers, guys that are following just the money numbers. I mean, I can quote 60 cents a mile, I can quote 70 cents a mile, but if you don't get any miles, how much money you're going to make? So what we do is the truthfulness, the honesty, the upfrontness. If there's a situation, we want to know, both the good and the bad of what's going on. If you have a suggestion to improve it, we're always open to that. We don't know it all. That's the one thing, we just don't know it all. I mean, there might be some things. Some of our drivers have offered some ideas that have been outstanding ideas, and we've incorporated. So it's just a matter of the partnership that we have to offer. Now, as far as benefits, you're going to have the full benefits. Health benefits from day one. We are offering drivers with experience level when they come in, depending on when they come in during the year. A driver 1 to 4 years experience has 5 days of paid time off available to him. If he starts in January, he'd have 5 days. And we prorate that down to the 12 months, so in December, October, November, December, they're probably looking at a couple days now, but then they're going to get that full 5 days at the beginning of the year back as vacation. So we've got some time off available initially that starts from the first week. We pay 6 holidays, whether you run the holiday or not, you still get paid. Vision and dental after 60 days. So it's all the full benefits, 401k option available. I think just the whole package of everything speaks for itself. Once you get here, give us a shot. Give me a call. Have any questions, be happy to try to answer them. If I don't have the answer, I'll sure try to find it for you.
Well, all right. Greg, it's Allsop, Allsop, correct? Allsop.
OP, correct. Allsop.
Greg Allsop with Marvin Keller Trucking out of Illinois, central Illinois, and Ruth Ann's pointing to Sullivan, which is near the Effingham area, he said.
Correct.
800-752-0342, extension 280 is directly to Greg if you'd like to call him. It sounds like Greg's definitely been with the company forever and knows probably everything that you need to know about what your life would be like at Marvin. Give him a call. Greg, we truly appreciate you coming on the show and introducing your company to the United States through Talk CDL. We love it.
Ruth Ann and Troy, I appreciate it, enjoyed it. Hopefully I didn't muddle it too much.
You did just fine.
Yeah, you did better than Ruth Ann does. So.
Uh-oh.
I'm just kidding.
Ruth Ann. Them there sign words. Better watch it.
I have to tell you something. It was funny. one of our friends that we have, it's a driver that we're very close friends with, and he had contacted us and he said, something's going on with the
podcast.
With the podcast on iTunes. For some reason, Troy's talking really fast, and Ruthann sounds like a chipmunk when she laughs. And I'm sitting there, I said, well, do you have it sped up? He goes, no, I can't do that. And I look, I'm like, no, you actually sped it up on your phone. That's why you're making us sound so funny.
Yeah, so if anybody out there is listening, if you're on iTunes listening to any podcast, if you touch that little circle to the right near the play button, it's going to make it go fast, and it's going to talk fast, and we're all going to sound like munchkins.
And I'm going to sound really annoying.
Yeah, more annoying.
Alvin.
Exactly, right?
All right.
There you go. There you go. Super. Well, I appreciate your time and that you shared. We should be able to share together. I appreciate it, and the opportunity to share with your listeners.
We're going to try to get to Louisville this year, so if you guys are there, look us up. We'll have medias and walking around.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you all for listening. You have marvinkeller.com. And again, a number to contact Greg is at 217-728-9800, extension 280. Ask for Greg.
And tell him Talk CDL sent you. And I'm sure you guys got Facebook and all kind of social media, so you can look them up there and maybe communicate there also.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that was Greg Alsop, ALLSOP from Marvin Keller Trucking. And it sounds like they got a lot to offer.
It does. It sounds like they're a very nice family-oriented company where they take a lot of care with their drivers.
I mean, you can go on their webpage and read all kind of neat things that they offer drivers, which I would suggest, do your diligence. But, definitely a sound company to me. I was going to say I'm no expert, but I am an expert. No, I'm not.
He's an expert on everything.
Yeah, I'm a legend in my own mind. But anyways, look them up, check them out. It was a little bit of a different podcast today, Ruthann. We started off talking about the hurricane, and then we went to Marvin Keller.
Well, I wanted to be able to bring in some of our sponsors. One of the things that we like to do is give that opportunity that our sponsors have a chance to talk to the drivers about them. So this is one of the opportunities that we took to give them a chance to look.
Just the truth. When I'm listening to people, to me, what he wasn't trying to push was come here, get rich, own a truck, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. What he was really trying to push was this is a long-term relationship we're looking for. We're not looking for the guy that's trying to make a fast buck. We're looking for the guy that wants to bring his family here and know us. We get to know you, and it's literally a happy relationship where we can all help each other grow together. I mean, honestly, truly, what more do you want? When you try to go more than that, it's frustrating because you're trying to get something from somebody that they don't have to give. So it sounds like a great company.
Well, yeah, I mean, he said he has a lease purchase purchase driver that is now going on his fourth tractor, and he's trying to build his own little small fleet within their fleet. So it's kind of like, like I said, really family oriented, at least, where they're treating their drivers as part of the family.
But I'm going to tell you something about that. Okay, that's a great story, but they probably don't have a million people like that. Why is that? Because the guy that builds up his fleet within a trucking company like that is a guy that was patient, went through good times, bad times, maybe a breakdown, didn't get frustrated, say, F this, I'm out of here. He saved money, and therefore he had money in the bank for bad times. And while he was going through all this, I mean, you don't just get up to 4 trucks going through a lease without some hiccups. All I'm saying is that if that's your goal coming to Marvin or anybody, you got to have the mentality of knowing that there's ups and downs, and we just got to get through it. But in the long run, if you stick to it, you could have a great career. Ruthann, you ready to get out of here?
Peace.
Praise the Lord.